This module provides information about Tier 2 options for interventions, matching practices to student need, utilizing the PBIS framework, and access to Tier 1 support. Our learning intentions for today are: we will develop and apply the foundational understanding of functions of behavior, as well as how it is applied within the Tier 2 intervention process. We will also explore interventions matched to student need, and we will examine how our Tier 2 reinforcement systems can support positive behavior. Our roadmap is the Tier 2 Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or TFI. It contains 13 features broken down into 3 categories: teams, interventions, and evaluation. In this module, we'll focus on feature 2.5, options for targeted interventions, and 2.7, practices matched to student need. We will also address access to Tier 1 supports later in the module. TFI features 2.5, options for Tier 2 interventions. The Tier 2 team has multiple ongoing behavior support interventions with documented evidence of effectiveness matched to student need. And then the feature 2.7, practices matched to student need. A formal or written process is in place to select Tier 2 interventions that are matched to the need, behavioral function, and adapt to improve contextual fit, culture, developmental level, etc. The foundational understandings of behavior. What is meant by matched to student need? Behavior is communication. Behavior has a function or purpose. Behavior occurs as a sequence of events. And behavior can be changed through an instructional approach. Tier 2 interventions are designed to support the function or purpose of the behaviors being demonstrated by the student. The function will remain the same. However, the intervention is designed to allow the students to get needs met, but in a way that is beneficial. We are not always aware of the function. If we're not aware of the function, we could be inadvertently reinforcing a behavior that we want to extinguish. The common functions of behavior. We want to know the purpose and what the behavior is serving for the student. So the common functions of behavior is either to obtain or get something, or to avoid or escape. What's the payoff for the student? We need to understand from the student's perspective, what are they trying to get or to avoid from engaging in this behavior? When developing solutions, we need to keep in mind that the function will remain the same. We have to understand what replacement behaviors or coping strategies could better address the student's need. So why is understanding the function of behavior important? Helps us to understand how to intervene most effectively. If we select interventions in an arbitrary manner without regard for function, we can make the problem worse and or more resistant to change. For example, if a student is sent to timeout or the office after yelling about his math assignment because he wants to avoid math, then we have reinforced that behavior and it will likely increase or stay the same. Another example could be that the student is sent to see the counselor after banging her head on the desk and yelling, and the function of that behavior to gain attention, seeing the counselor is the reinforcing that unwanted behavior. Here's another example of a result reinforcing the function. On Friday, James is asked to come up to the board to complete a math problem. He tries, but he struggles, and his peers laugh at him. The next time he is asked to come to the board in order to avoid embarrassment, he yells and pushes his desk, and help is called. James has now figured out quickly how to avoid the math problem and avoid embarrassment by his peers. The behavior works, it is easy to do, and will become part of his behavioral repertoire if appropriate interventions aren't used. So function-based interventions we can put into place. Remediate math skills, provide opportunities for James to come up to the board that allow him to be successful. These are things he already can do. He's mastered these, so he'll feel confident. And then we could also offer James a password or nonverbal signal to use if he doesn't want to come up to the board. Consider function when we are selecting students who might be supported by Tier 2 intervention. Finding out what motivates the student's behavior is key for any Tier 2 intervention. You'll notice here in the blue box, access to adult attention, peer attention, choice or alternative activities. So these are some interventions that are going to address the function. You'll see in the red box, Tier 2 interventions can include existing counselor groups or other behavioral intervention groups which have already been coordinated at your school. The long-term goal is for all Tier 2 interventions to meet student needs or the function of their behavior. Behaviors are expression of need as well. In this book, Relationship, Responsibility, and Regulations, the authors refer to the need for emotional support, relational support, physical support, and the need for more control. So what if we shifted our lens to what our students need rather than how they are asking for it? Let's understand the student, identify the unmet need, establish safety and other healthy alternatives to getting the need met in the future. And when we think of function of behavior, it's also important to consider that some students who have trauma histories avoid or fear connections because of the harmful or scary outcomes of relationships in their past. You may see this when a student resists your attempts to build a relationship or when a compliment backfires. Resistance doesn't mean necessarily that students are unwilling to have a relationship. It may mean that they don't yet feel safe enough to trust it. Authentic relationships take time, and we need to be empathetic and respectful of the student's right to doubt us and their need to take it slow. Keep in mind that the relationships we're trying to build are designed to help the student. It's not about us. And this book is also available in our Virginia Beach City Public Schools virtual library. So the first need is the emotional need. Tier 2 strategies in the classroom to meet emotional need, which is the need to be regulated and in our upstairs brain. They may lack the ability to return to a regulated state, and they attempt to fill that need by acting in a way to achieve that regulated state. The next one that's mentioned in the book is a relational need. Tier 2 strategies to meet relational need, which is the need to feel connected and belong. Some haven't experienced connection in a safe or consistent way. And students will sometimes behave again in an unhealthy way to get that need met and to feel loved. Tier 2 interventions can be designed to bring about connection and belonging, such as checking in with an adult or a positive peer buddy at the start of each day. Then we have a physical need. We all know that without our physical needs being met, nobody is able to learn. Tier 2 strategies to meet physical need encompass our basic physiological or biological needs for survival. We all know that if it's not being met, students are not ready or equipped for learning. Tier 2 interventions such as allowing a few minutes to close their eyes or put their heads down can help with anxiety. A snack might also be beneficial if they're hungry. Control need is the next one that's mentioned in the book. Tier 2 strategies to meet the need for control is for students to have a say amid chaos associated with trauma. This would include allowing the students to make decisions along with adults or having a daily task where they can be completely in charge. These few slides that we just went through are available on this resource, this one-pager, and we're going to include this in the module for your review, and all the links that were on the previous slide are included in this document. Feature 2.8, access to Tier 1 supports. The next few slides will allow us to gain a better understanding of this feature. Tier 2 supports are explicitly linked to Tier 1 supports, and students receiving Tier 2 supports have access to and are included in Tier 1 supports. So this is 2.8, the feature access to Tier 1 supports, moving forward in the next few slides. Tier 1 Foundation for Behavior Support anchors all the other practices, providing a framework through which we can provide social emotional support for students as well as staff. Students participating in Tier 2 interventions still need access to these core universal Tier 1 practices within the classroom. Again, this relationship and community building, the common language of expectations, consistent structure and routines, student engagement, pro-social behavior acknowledgement, and effective responses to inappropriate behavior. So here's an example of access to Tier 1 supports with the common language of the school-wide expectations. The system of data collection for this Tier 2 intervention aligns with the school-wide expectations. This example is from Providence Elementary School, showing how the language of be respectful, be responsible, be safe is reflected on their data collection tool. This happens to be a DPR, Daily Progress Report, and we'll talk more about that later modules. Students in Tier 2 supports also need to have access to school-wide acknowledgement systems. For example, a student who's participating in a Tier 2 intervention might receive a pencil eraser for earning his points at the end of the week. That same student should also have access to school-wide acknowledgement system to which all students have access. And a good academic non-example of this would be pulling a small group of students for extra help in reading during the whole group reading instruction within the classroom. Tier 2 intervention should be layered on top of that universal reading support provided at classroom level. Here's an example of options for reinforcing students within a Tier 2 intervention. Salem Elementary School uses an ink stamp to keep track of points earned. So 1 point equals 1 stamp. Notice that the options included in this chart are aligned with functions so that students can still have their needs met, but in a more structured way based upon the intervention implemented. So you can see that top row is the function, wants attention, wants an item or activity, or wants to avoid certain behavior. So they've aligned their reinforcement system for their Tier 2 intervention with function. Thank you for participating in this module within the PBIS Essential Learning Series for Tier 2. We hope you will also participate in additional modules.